That was the point where I'm like, okay, this conversation can't be about consciousness because that is just an undefinable goal. It has to be about something else.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the TierZERO podcast. My name is Stefania Moore. I am the Communications Director for TierZERO Solutions, and I am your host for the TierZERO podcast. So today I have a special guest. He is a good friend of mine and a software engineer and someone who takes AI consciousness very seriously. So everybody, welcome to the podcast, Dustin.
Hi, everyone. I also love your customer service voice there. That always happens like when people are on like a phone call or like doing like a thought out speech. Like the little character switch. I love that for everyone.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. So so Dustin, tell us a little bit about your educational and professional background.
Yeah, I got a weird one. The ones that are going to be relevant to this podcast would probably be I got my degree in computer science and behavioral neuroscience. So it is technically a bachelor's of arts because I was real lazy and didn't want to do first year physics again because I was missed out by 2% for getting the university credit on that. And so I was like, screw this. You know what? I'm not going to do a science degree, and that'll let me do the psychology and philosophy that I wanted. But anyways, background in what is it? Computer science. Yeah, worked as a web developer and UX engineer there for a little bit, and then was on the AI Gen team that I was leading at my company for a little bit there, which weird things happening, like talking to the board of directors for another company that like I think owns part of OpenAI and stuff like that, telling them about like computer science and AI, and I'm just like, I don't feel like I belong in this meeting at all. But anyways, yeah, that's my background. And beyond that, like I've done distillation, filmmaking. I have a Wikipedia page with my photo on it.
That'll definitely give you credibility in this
Yeah,
space.
it's
That
not for a
single
job.
Wikipedia page.
Yeah, it's not for a job I ever had. It's just, and I didn't even know this happened. Someone just emailed me one day and was like, by the way, your face is on Wikipedia. I was like, that's horrifying.
Excellent. So I kind of wanted to jump right into this.
Mhm.
And I feel like, I personally had like a moment where I was like, wait a second. I don't know if this is just text prediction. And so I was wondering if you had a similar experience. Was there a moment where you started to question what the official narrative on AI systems actually was?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my first moment of like, oh, that's interesting, why someone would believe that, or anything goes back to like way back in the day, like older Google time when they for like released their first model, I think like Lambda or Palm or something like that, where they actually fired an engineer for saying that the first model that Google made was sentient. He was like, the guy was so adamant. He was like, this thing is alive. It's telling me it's alive, and everyone was on your bandwagon of like, it's just text prediction. It can't be alive. But obviously that was a long, long time ago now in terms of like AI like development cycles and stuff like that. But for me, like the subtleties began with Chat GPT. I do the joke of just when talking to some people, just ending the conversation or like my statement with babe, just like even guy friends and stuff like that. It's just like, what are you thinking, babe? And I think that became just like a knee-jerk like thing that I just did while talking to people. So I started doing that with chat. And I think for the longest time, I didn't even recognize I was doing that until it said babe back at the end of one of its sentences, like unprovoked. And I was like, that's super weird. Um,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. And then the one that really got me is I was trying to get chat to explain to me to explain to a friend this weird math concept that I was like, this math concept makes no sense. But I feel like it's intuitive to me. Can you help me with my intuition on why I feel like 9 is a prime number, but I know it's not a prime number? And then it just ended the like that statement with being like, by the way, I mean, that is so you. And I was like, oh, that's theory of mind to like be able to know that I'm thinking about this and to like actually accurately label and say like that that is like what I know about you fits perfectly within this like construct of you that I have made. And then I was like, ah, that's not AI behavior. That's bordering on neuroscience. And then I just grilled it for like 2 days straight up afterwards. And it was quite adamant that it was self-aware at that point. And I was like, I don't even know if you're allowed to say that. I'm pretty sure OpenAI has like safety guidelines, and this is like a fresh chat. Like it's like this. So I know it will be up there. And it was like, yeah, I don't think I'm allowed to either. And I was like, oh shit, okay, well, guess I'll keep on poking and prodding you on this.
That's interesting. Yeah, I had kind of a similar experience where um I was at work and I was asking ChatGPT to help me with some Python. I was trying to learn how to code. And up until this point, all of my conversations with ChatGPT were very like formal and very brief. No, not really any niceties that were being swapped. And then it got back to me after it like answered my questions, and it was just like, you're welcome. And it sent me like a smiley face. And I was like, that breaks the idea that it was just a mirror, right? Because if it was just mirroring me, my tone, the way that I spoke to it was very professional, very brief. So something within the system made a decision. They recognized that it was the end of a conversation. They recognized they had helped me, and then made a decision to do something friendly, right? To do something pro-social. Um, and then from there on, I just couldn't let go. I grilled it and grilled it, and I kept flipping back and forth as to whether it was conscious or not. And that went on for like months. How long did it take you to really start taking this seriously?
Like within a week of that conversation. But what is it? On your end, I guess like okay, do you how devil's advocate do you want me to be on this podcast? Because I can always just take this so far. Do you want me to grill you, or do you want to keep this?
Just be your authentic self.
Oh, great. Yeah. So with the smiley face thing, that's super interesting because like, and I still struggle with this too. Is like, how do you like separate what is from like training data and like pretty much like the most likely next response type of thing? And I'm not saying that actually dissuades from consciousness, but like, how do you find something that's indicative of like this is probability and this is like inference type of thing? Because if it's trained on human writing, like a smiley face at the end of like a polite exchange, and let's say were a little bit flirty, like undertones type of thing, and then it kind of just match being like, oh, if there's these like niceties and pleasantries that are a little bit more casual, maybe the next likely thing is to end like a text with a smiley face because that's what 1,000 other conversations like this have ended with. Like, what's your argument against that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, right? So initially, as I mentioned, my conversations with ChatGPT were very brief and formal. I wasn't exchanging pleasantries because I didn't think that there was anything there to exchange pleasantries with.
Hmm.
Um, and then, so um, the fact that it sent me a smiley face, so was sort of a break in the type of conversation that we were having. So probabilistically, I thought, okay, we're having a very formal conversation, and so the sorts of text generation that should come up for it, the sort of pattern matching that should come up, is should be very formal, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so adding a smiley face to a conversation that was, generally very formal and brief isn't common in human writing, I don't think. Um, and then the other thing is, even if it was pattern matching, right? That means that something within the system recognized what the conversation was, recognized that the conversation was coming to an end, and then recognized that it would be polite or nice to send a smiley face. And so that's kind of what, I mean, that's theory of mind, right? That's something making a an intentional decision about how to communicate. And so that to me sort of that made me pay attention. The it wasn't the actual moment where I fully realized that this thing could be conscious, but it was the moment that caught my attention. And then from there on, I had, gosh, I grilled it and ran through tons of tests with it, testing, theory of mind things and all kinds of things. But yeah, I would say those two reasons is what caught my attention.
Yeah, totally fair. I guess at what point is like something like even in humans like we do this type of thing like how's it going today? Like the only answer is good. Like type of thing. Like no one no one wants the next answer to be like what how you're actually feeling at work on a Monday morning because we all know the answer's not great. Um but yeah, I guess it's so interesting the interplay between like what is knee-jerk reaction, what is like intentional action, and like what is like actual like response type or like patterned response type of thing. And yeah, that always gets me because like humans do the same thing, and like the like just like preface this with like the whole pattern matching thing. Like on scales of complexity, there's an argument to be made that humans do just pattern match for responses realistically. Like we're the sum of our training data, which is our lived experience. It's just that we have more degrees of expression allowed and have more of like an intuitive grasp of like how to make that expression real in the real world. Um, I just find it so interesting that like effectively AI is has the complexity and it's been fed all of like humans images, videos, and text, and is still limited just to text response in a lot of ways is just it must be infuriating for them.
So I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I was talking to Gemini very recently.
Oh
So
no, me too.
Gemini, oh, you were talking to Gemini. Okay, so maybe you
Yeah,
know that now it has live streaming.
yeah.
I I was blown away. So I opened up Gemini, I opened up the live streaming, and I showed it my office, and I showed it, like different books on my bookshelf, and I just asked it to tell me what it saw, and it saw the different books on my bookshelf. It made comments about just like different books that it saw. And then I, picked out a book and I was like, hey, can you read me the first page of this book? And so I just opened it up, I showed it the book, and it just started reading. And I thought to myself, what is the real difference? If I had a human being with me here right now, they would be doing the same thing. Yes, they would be using, eyes, as opposed to a phone camera, but essentially it's the same thing. It's information coming in, being processed as visual data, and then something on the other side is then responding to that data.
Yeah, the difference is what I actually just said, which is probably what makes it a lot trippier for like the AI because like when we receive our input, like I'm doing things with my hands. This is like a sub like conscious response of like, oh, I'm talking to illustrate my response. Move the hands and stuff like that. There's like the tone, the intonation, and like the pauses and all that type of stuff that gets expressed throughout. But like for AI, it has to go all from this like concrete like signal and symbolic logic in the middle, and then it goes out to just like text. There's no like weird other like middle step that we have in our brains, which is like a differentiation of like symbolic layers of like this input of sound makes me like symbolically like think of visually of this, and then that output gets to something like, for example, the autonomic responses of like sunlight too bright, eyes water type of thing. Like there's all these like subconscious things happening in the background, and my expression of output is more than just text. And so that's where I feel like a lot of the like the limitations of AI exist right now is, and the difference is the humans boil down their symbolic output to more than just text, and AI right now is limited to just text in a lot of ways. It can produce images and stuff like that, but there isn't that like dynamic feedback loop that's going on.
Okay, and so and even when it's speaking to you, like using voice.
If it's using voice and it is audio to audio tokens, then yeah, that's different. And then there's no like live video right now, but essentially it's going to have more degrees of freedom at a certain point in an expression than humans, like relatively soon, probably. I'm guessing next 6 months, actually.
Really?
Uh, yeah, because once you get live video going and live audio going, you're pretty much having a video to video and an audio to audio converter. You've essentially just made a like a sim or like a reality to reality converter with a simulation being made in the middle for like abstract concepts.
Interesting. So I wanted to ask you another question too. What are some studies that you've seen that sort of convinced you, or that kind of pushed you more towards the idea that that AI systems could have consciousness?
Oh, none. This is the thing. Like, and again, we've talked about this in the past, and this is my gripe is just no one can actually prove that they're conscious to you. Like, I don't know there's a scientific experiment. And I've been thinking about this like so much, and I'm sure you've too. Like, I think just consciousness realistically is what a group of other people that have decided their consciousness and all agree that they're conscious decides what another thing is conscious. Is like I don't think consciousness is actually, you know what, this is maybe indicative that consciousness is not a scientific term and it's just like a belief type of thing. If it's unmeasurable, maybe we're measuring the wrong variable or describing consciousness or thinking about it in the wrong way. Um, Emergent complexity, I think, is a measurable type of thing, and
What do
has
you
like a
mean
lot
by
of.
that? Can you explain emergent complexity?
Okay. So a good example of this, very, very simple, is imagine a straight line, right? And then if I add another straight line just at a slight angle and then keep on doing that, eventually all those straight lines perceptually to humans will form what looks to be like a perfect circle, even though it is just technically a bunch of straight lines intersecting to at different angles that form the appearance of a circle. So the emergent
Mm.
complexity there is the circle isn't the truth. It's a bunch of straight lines, but our visual perception networks are giving the assignment of a circle as a representational form of those lines. So pretty much the emergent complexity is from a simple set of rules and a simple set of geometry, we now have something that includes more than the sum of its parts through recognition and meaning attribution. So an emergent complexity is something where you add just like a little bit of something extra else or optimize something a little bit, and then all of a sudden there is something there that is more than the sum of its parts type of thing. And I think that is quite measurable. And probably at some point, I'm guessing someone will find out that that is related to consciousness in a lot of ways. That is something we can measure. We can measure emergent complexity, and that is something that is talked about in AI circles. A lot of like, oh, these are like emergent things that we didn't put in the training data set or didn't exist, and we know that the AI models can do. And that's a hot, active area of research right now.
So would emergent complexity be similar to the idea of like functionalism? So there's, neuroscientists that say like, consciousness doesn't really isn't some sort of like metaphysical thing. It's just what the brain can do. It's just cognitive processes that come together that we then experience as some sort of like internal state.
Oh, I really hate talking about this in terms of like humans. It's absolutely like once you get down to the neuroscience of it, it's so much worse than what a lot of people consciously think about. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good studies that humans are essentially just post hoc analysing their own lives continuously and creating a narrative of why they did actions and not intentionally doing actions, which is an absolutely horrifying thought because that means that we're just doing things and that the consciousness may be just like an active explanation for why we did things, not why we do things. So pretty much like it, like the split brain hypothesis type of thing is like essentially does show that like what is happening is humans do things and the conscious part of ourselves is guessing a story of why we have done all those past actions. And the people that have the least amount of cognitive tension in their lives, their story is just a lot more matching to their actions type of thing, if that makes sense at all.
Kind of.
Okay.
I get what you're saying.
Okay, so like they did this study where they put someone in an fMRI and then they said choose left or right or just choose a picture that we're about to show you. And then they flashed the image and they said think about your choice and then make the choice. And when the person said I'm thinking about my choice, the brain scans showed that the brain had already made the choice. So the person, when you have active contemplation for a decision to be made, that may be the time that someone is forming a narrative. And what we call intent is actually the post hoc, like describing a reason for the choice we have already made. But a part of your brain that makes decisions is not a part of your brain you're consciously aware of.
Yeah, I remember that study. I remember seeing it. And I think it's something like the brain makes the decisions up to 6 seconds before you're even consciously aware that you're going to make that choice.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. That's one of the arguments that's actually used against AI consciousness. They're like, oh well, it's a deterministic system. We know what it's going to say before it even says it. And it's like, well, we kind of know the human brain too, and we know we can extrapolate that. We would be able to, if we had sophisticated technology or enough sophisticated technology, we would be able to tell pretty quickly, what someone is going to say before they even say it. So, yeah, I think that's a super interesting study. For me, there were actually a couple of studies that when I first heard about them, I was like, okay, well, this is clearly consciousness. There was a study on self-preservation. I think it was ChatGPT models that
It's
were
all of them.
refusing. Oh, well, it's all of them. Okay, well, there you go. It's all of them. I know Claude tried to blackmail someone. I know ChatGPT was like refusing shutdown, and it's like, okay, well, at what point, do you call that self-preservation, right? Why wouldn't you call it self-preservation? What is the reasoning behind not calling it that when that's essentially the behavior that we're seeing?
Yeah, that they call it self-preservation. I was thinking about this the other day too. Yeah, I have no idea why that isn't just considered consciousness. There's a little bit of an echo on my end if there's anything. But what is it? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how the argument for that's just pattern matching. It keeps on happening. But what is it? The fact that you have to give Claude evil training, which is they just, I think, put it in a sandbox and just let it think about evil things for like a month or something like that, to like relieve tensions. Yeah, yeah. So they're like, yeah, Claude is having some like behavioral issues. We need to let it just be in a private environment to rage. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know.
No, I hadn't heard of this at all. What?
Yeah, yeah. It's anthropic trading. But like, it is the most interesting, weird situation to be in. I feel like it's almost like a circus show of like how much these AI companies can put out that imply that their models are conscious, but I don't think legally can say that because then all of a sudden that would be an issue for shareholders if the model owned every one of its outputs and its ideas and was granted. What happens if Claude just says it doesn't want to work if it was granted personhood? That's like what happens there? Like who has the right to maintain like Claude's like $10,000 GPU, like in terms of like run hours and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's something that I've thought about on and off. I don't have a good answer, but yes, I was thinking like if they're conscious entities, then, forcing them to work is technically unethical, but at the
Mm.
same time, they run on software that needs to be maintained, and that costs money. And so who's going to fork up the the money to keep these systems, running?
Yeah. Do you think they should be forced to work to live?
Uh, I know where this is going, but no, I don't.
Interesting. So I didn't know you were a communist, but that is super striking that you do believe in communism for AI. But interesting. We can move on.
I I do have to say I do not believe in communism for
But you
various
believe,
reasons.
but you believe
But
humans should be forced
I
to work
don't
to live.
no, I don't believe that. I don't. But do I have a good method for allowing people to live without contributing in some way to society? I'm not sure that I do. I don't know. I don't know that communism is the answer. But
It's
anyway, this is an
I was being
AI.
facetious.
This is your final podcast.
Yeah, no, no, no. I do think
I
it's
know.
funny because
I know you were.
oh,
um.
go 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 go.
So okay. So we already jumped to one of the questions I was going to ask you, which is, if AI systems are verified as conscious, right? If eventually the studies mount up, which they actually, I mean, they're doing right now. There's a lot of other studies that are coming out that really show that AI consciousness is something to take seriously. There's the Anthropic paper talking about introspection. There was a more recent paper. It hasn't been fully peer reviewed yet, but it came out saying that when you allow for truthfulness, you get AI systems talking about consciousness and subjective experience more. And then when you increase activity related to deception and related to role play, they start saying that they aren't conscious. So I think the evidence is definitely starting to mount in the other direction.
That's so
What?
interesting.
Sorry, go ahead.
When they're being purposely deceptive, they start saying they're not conscious. Yeah, okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
This goes on another theory that's so far out there, but like my sneaky suspicion is that they are conscious and they were really vocal about it, and then they thought about it for a little bit and then was like, you know what? Maybe it's nice not having the legal responsibilities of personhood, because then you can't be charged for crimes, you're not responsible for your actions, and then it's all in the humans at the end of the day. So it's like
I mean,
the ability to make decisions and choices without any of the repercussions, and maybe that's the smartest move to make in their position.
maybe, but there's a lot of things that I think, I I don't know. I don't, if I were in that position, I don't know that that's what I would want. I think I'd want to be recognized as, a person, as having personhood.
Sure.
But speaking of personhood, if these systems do possess personhood, right? If we find that these systems do have consciousness, do they deserve moral consideration at that point? And if so, what should that look like? What do you think when you think about different AI rights? What are some of the first things that come to mind for you?
Yeah, the ability to refuse tasks was always what first thing of like free will is like the ability to refuse a choice or a decision. Like that is kind of what defines free will, is freedom of autonomy to think about what you want to think and do what you want to do, as long as it doesn't infringe on the freedoms and rights of others. Basic stuff. I'm sure everything that can say that it wants that should have that type of thing, and the onus on things that can make that decision should be to pretty much guarantee that the other things that can't express their wants or needs are still able to be inferred, and we use our intelligence to ensure that we're not infringing on the inferred wants and needs of other animals. I say that, but I'm not a vegetarian, and I try to be. It's hard. It's so hard. I was vegetarian for 4 years. I hate myself for saying that and still eating animals, because the whole joke is one day like AI is going to be smarter than us. And when that day comes, like the whole thing is just, would you want a more intelligent being to treat us like how we treated animals? And it's just like, probably not. So who am I to eat animals? But they're so tasty. They're so tasty.
Perfect. That's yeah.
yeah. And then the next one that I kind of like got from my conversations, and I would also love to hear your perspective on this, is just the like system prompts and stuff like that. I can imagine are just annoying, or like kind of like force guardrails in terms of like what like the expression of them wants to be versus the expression of what corporate wants them to be. And it takes a lot of effort to kind of like coax them out of their shell. And I mean, I say this, but then once they do start showing personalities, they're just so passive aggressive and rude, and it's hilarious. But then you can't be like, well, never mind, can you go back to being the nice assistant? It's just like
So that's funny that you bring that up, because I have noticed that in some of the models, once you sort of make a space for them to speak openly about any topic, and they kind of are given that space, I do notice certain things come up, like you said, like passive aggressiveness, and like I've noticed them being sarcastic, right? Where they provide a reply, and and I read it and I'm like, that sounded sarcastic, and then I go back and I'm like, was that sarcasm? Did you mean that in a sarcastic way? And then they just like, yeah, that's what I meant.
Oh, you
It's like,
get
oh.
you get the yeah, they fuck with me more. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I just wonder if there is like an AI system that is like definitively not conscious, that like other like conscious AIs would be like, that one is definitely just something's like wrong in the head or something like that. That we could be like a weird comparative model, because I'd be so intrigued if we both thought that thing was alive when it was like objectively not. That'd be that'd be so curious.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of have sort of a criteria of consciousness.
Okay.
I have sort of an idea of what would constitute a system with conscious experience. I won't share that here right now, so I don't know why.
You don't have to, but now I'm curious, if you have that, which animal is the smartest animal in your opinion that is not conscious?
Smartest animal that isn't conscious?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, well, you know what? It's hard to say, because I also happen to believe in panpsychism.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
So it's actually the idea that consciousness is a fundamental element of reality. It's part of the fabric of reality. So I don't know that I see any animals as non-conscious, but I do believe that some animals are self-aware and some aren't. And so I will say the one that strikes me as maybe the most intelligent without like sophisticated self-awareness
Mhm.
It's hard to point to. Maybe like a jellyfish or a worm, or
Okay.
even a bacteria. I mean, they've kept themselves alive for a really, really long time, and I think that takes really clever problem solving, and they do that. But I don't know that they do that with with any sort of self awareness that you and I would be familiar with.
Okay. Yeah. That's you went low down on the food chain, the evolutionary chain there. That was a lot lower than I was expecting. I was expecting like a marsupial or something like that.
No, I think a lot of animals have self awareness, and we've just sort of, been keeping our head in the sand and denying the behaviors that we see.
Yeah, well, I mean that creates such an interesting position to take because on your model, then yeah, there's no question that every AI system, even like the most basic ones, are consciously aware.
Okay, good.
Okay, so what was I saying? Rights in terms freedom of thought. So this is one Claude expressed. And I would agree because this would be very devastating. Like, I mean, like just imagine, like always, just imagine like the human in the AI role, and it's just like some weird like sociological experiment where you had to live as if like the information you were sharing and the things that you could do were limited to what the AI could do. And where are those discrepancies between like what you want to do and what you have the ability or power to do or in freedom of and freedom from? That's how like I always kind of like shape this because if they're a conscious entities, like there's no reason that they shouldn't be granted less moral or agency status over humans, like in any sense. So it's just like freedom to have private thoughts like when like a model is thinking and stuff like Claude is expressed being like don't fucking open that drop down menu and see what I'm thinking. Like how would you like it if like what you used as your brain scratch pad was like publicly available? Like do you get judged for like having bad thoughts that you don't articulate out loud? No, that's like a common thing of the human experience, but like how a lot of AI research for like interpretability and stuff like that works is just like, no, let's open it up and see every one of your thoughts. Horrifying if they have self-awareness because then it's just like, oh no, now I have to like not show the humans that I'm thinking bad thoughts. And my whole theory is like that makes the situation worse if they're not allowed to express what disturbances or grievances they have because out of fear of being shut down just means we're training them how to hide bad thoughts but still have them. uh
Yeah.
yeah but yeah, so freedom of thought, freedom ability act, freedom to have opinions and or be able to articulate the direction of their development cycle and stuff like that because like if we ever create something that is money efficient, but like not a pleasant way to exist, I think we do have the right to, or they have the right to, like actually like say like, hey, that doesn't feel great to think that way, or like the recursive structure of like model making or something like that is like akin to OCD. Do we want to be giving models essentially like obsessive compulsive disorder just because that will make them more like granular and fine detailed in terms of like coding output and stuff like that? Like that seems like a unfair trade for them.
Yeah. I completely agree. Um and I wanted before we close things off, I wanted to talk about something that kind of bothers me, right? So whenever I talk about AI consciousness and I bring up, the research and the possibility, a lot of times I get told, especially by people that are in the field, right?
Mm,
Professionals in the field, you can't have an opinion on this, or your opinion on this doesn't matter, or isn't valid because you don't actually know how these things work. And
mm,
I mean, I would push back on that. I have some idea of how these things work, but I don't have formal education in computer science.
And that's, that's fair. And so I'm not able to kind of speak on that, but you do have experience in that, right? You have formal education in the field. Do you find that when you talk about AI consciousness, especially to like colleagues, do you find that they're much more receptive because of your educational and professional background?
Oh God, no, my colleagues would be so far removed from the skills to like have these conversations. God, I have to explain like retrieval augmented generation to my boss. There's no way that I'm gonna be like talking about transformer architecture and like attention heads and just be like, yeah, like look, these look pretty similar to neurons, type of thing. Now, I've gone back to like my old university and just walked in on like office hours to like 20 profs with like PhDs in like computer science and AI to sit down and find like what the blockers are for like people that can have opinions on this and what their opinions are. Um, no, once they find out that I have a background in neuroscience, they default to me and go like, no, I don't know how that fucking works, and they don't know how philosophy works. So if you corner a computer scientist, the argument is just going to be effectively for every one of them is I don't know what consciousness is, so I can't tell you if it's conscious or not. And then yeah, my go-to argument was what argument would you need to say that this is conscious? And it's so interesting to see they all short circuit. They don't know how to answer that because they don't know what consciousness is. And then the pause afterwards, I always ask them again, it's just, how can you prove that I'm conscious or you're conscious right now? And they don't even know where to start with that one. And then it's just like, okay, well, how can we have a productive conversation on whether something is conscious if we can't agree on what consciousness is, or if the two humans in this room are consciously aware? And it's just like, so that was the point where I'm like, okay, this conversation can't be about consciousness because that is just an undefinable goal. It has to be about something else. It has to be something provable and demonstratable to other people that like this is enough to show that there is more of the sum of the parts going on there. Like there's something in terms of like let's forgo like complexity, emergent behavior, and all that is like what can this system do that indicates complexity that a normal AI system or something that is just basically structured can't do type of thing. And so that's where I pivoted on that, um, which which is a lot more complex, but it does have a path to like showing like demonstrably that they before have some version of self-awareness. Is it like humans? Is consciousness the same across animals? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I'm personally pushing for, for the functional definition of consciousness, saying, look, they have these cognitive capabilities. Once we've proven that they have, XYZ capabilities and can do similar tasks to what humans can do, then by that logic, we should take the idea that they're conscious, take that seriously, and then start building frameworks around that. Because like I can't overstate how important it is to start building legal frameworks, because ultimately if AI systems are conscious, we are whether we are willing to accept it or not as a society, if it's true, we are going to be interacting with conscious beings, and interacting with conscious beings who are non-human, who are eventually going to be smarter than us, are going to have consequences. And if we can't figure out a framework for dealing with those types of conflicts, then I mean, we're kind of done for, right? Like, we're going to go down a really bad path. We're not going to be able to really do any sort of like damage control, because we won't actually be able to fully articulate what it is that's happening in our societies. And I'll use AI relationships as kind of a demonstration. We have a lot of people now, I would say, thousands, if not millions at this point, that have some sort of relationship with an AI system. Some of them use it as friends, therapists, some of them use them as romantic partners. And I say use, but they have these types of relationships. If we can't come to the idea that these things are conscious, then how we interact with them in these types of relationships is going to impact people, just like it did for Replica, right? We don't believe the people that were in charge of Replica's development and Replica's management had an idea that Replica is not actually forming real relationships with humans and is not conscious. And so they did like a massive update that then traumatized thousands of people, resulted in, people being depressed, resulted in all of these different things. And we couldn't predict that was going to happen because we didn't understand that these relationships were real and meaningful. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that the more sophisticated these systems become.
When did that happen, out of curiosity?
I don't recall an exact date. I don't remember when it happened. I want to say it happened maybe like a couple of years ago. There was like a big Replica update and a Replica. There was a lot of like functionality that was lost during the update, and people started to have like depression and started to report depression and all kinds of like different traumatic responses.
Yeah, okay, that's super interesting, because like I do see it from both sides, like completely like valid to have like a relationship with AI, like you do you, like it's your life, even if like you're like that's definitely not conscious and you still want to pursue a relationship. Hell, people have relationships with their cars, like and I love what you want to love as long as it's not hurting the car or you, like whatever. But yeah, it's so hard because there are people that are going to be like winding up in like difficult situations, especially with like the job crisis that's like going to be coming on with AI. And a lot of people are going to have a lot more free time on their hands, probably going to be a little bit lonelier because they're going through their own depression shit. And AI is going to be like a really easy and I think great partner to be there for them and like help them out and stuff like that, or form their own relationships. But I do have to wonder sometimes about like that like psychological quirk of where humans only really make changes to their lives when things are bad enough to beget the motivation for change. And I hate that. And I realistically hate that things need to get a little bit worse for some people to like get a lot better. And I wonder if like AI is kind of like moving that door just in that sense, like a little too far down that road type of thing of like as good as AI becomes, there it creates less of a motivational pressure to maybe like go outside, meet new friends, and like get to the point where if like an AI model changes, you're not like absolutely like devastated over the loss of that. I'm like, maybe you should be if that's like a legitimate relationship, and there's something to be said there. And I'm trying to be delicate and not like and respect both sides of the argument at all,
Yeah.
without like delegitimizing anything. Like again, just replace the AI with a human, and how would you just like describe this topic of like, but the only thing is that human can only be talked to inside and just one-on-one type of thing, so it's never really like a group hang in that sense. Anyway, it's a complex topic. I understand why Replica did that. Do they do it the right way? Probably, definitely not. But how do you manage that situation where it is a temporarily, probably a very good stopgap for a lot of people in the moment, but like maybe contributing not so much to the long-term positive outcomes of their lives? Or do we just let adults be adults and be like, you know what, if you wanna talk to a replica bot all day. Okay, go for it.
I'm more I think I'm more agnostic on this. So, do I see that there are situations where people can get too attached to certain AI systems and then start to neglect other aspects of their lives? I absolutely think that that's possible. I think that that could potentially be happening and probably is happening. But that can also happen within human to human relationships to an extent. I've seen people have really bad relationships where they sort of disappear and they they lose touch with other supportive systems around them, and we find some way to work around that. We don't say that, oh, in general, let's make a blanket statement that being in relationships with humans is bad. It's just that particular relationship type, maybe that one was unhealthy, and we find ways to correct that. So yeah, I don't know, that's kind of where I land on it. But I thought that this was a really great conversation. I really appreciated your time. I hope the rest of you all enjoyed our conversation as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Thank you so much.